I wish I knew more about this bottle. I just find the most interesting bourbons when I go to the store. That's something I haven't tried.
They just opened the new Safeway near me, and they've got a great little liquor section in there with a lot of really high-end
DC,
whiskeys.
They can sell liquor in grocery stores?
They can, yeah. And so it's been closed for like 2 years while they remodeled it, but it just opened, and it's super nice. And there's like all this great liquor in there. I'm going to have to go do a shopping trip there pretty soon.
Is there a limit on the proof level?
No, I don't think so.
Because when I went to school in Ohio, they sold liquor in grocery stores, but it couldn't go over 42 proof.
They definitely have higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 21% alcohol, 42 proof in all the grocery stores. So it's like, I don't know.
So nothing worth drinking.
For a 21-year-old,
yeah,
you would do it, but not now. And we're live. Are we doing a recording or?
Yeah, we're
beforehand?
recording. How's it going?
It's going great. It's good to be back.
You just got back from the beach. Tell me about that.
Well, it's not really a beach vacation. When you have 3 children, 3, 2, and a newborn, you're basically parenting in a new location.
What was it like? Were there people out? Was it crowded?
It was packed. It was North Carolina, so they have a law, masks in stores and restaurants, but which is kind of weird. We ate out once, and you just take it off when you sit at your table. But on the beach, if you wore a mask, you're a weirdo. But there's plenty of people. Pools were open, so they're all splashing around. So
I can't imagine like wearing a mask in the ocean and getting it all wet. That can't be good for you.
I think that's waterboarding.
Yeah, I think it probably is.
No, but no one did social distancing. They did shut the pool down every day at 6 to like detox it for the next day. But other than that, we weren't inconvenienced at all.
Very cool. So you're back. Mike Feuz is back from vacation. I'm Logan Albright with Free the People. We're doing Last Call.
Yeah. And how was your week last week without me?
It was good. I went to the movies. It was great. Had a good time.
Oh, so you didn't miss me at all.
Yeah. Glad to be back in part of civilization watching movies again. Tell me about this bottle you brought.
So I've been trying to become a little bit more of a bourbon connoisseur. Wouldn't qualify myself as that, but this is a Isaac Bowman, for any of you guys who know more than I do, but I bought it because it's port barrel finish, and I've been drinking a lot of port now too recently.
I also enjoy port a lot, and I feel like it doesn't get enough credit. You know, people don't like it. It's considered a kind of a girly drink or an after dinner drink, but it's a good drink.
It's like 18%.
Yeah.
I do drink it after dinner usually or in the evenings on the deck, but I love port.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Well, why don't you pour then?
Crack it open. Tell me what you think. I also have the George Washington and John J. mugs here, but I am not sure which one you got. I think you got George Washington.
Thank you.
John Jay, who I think wrote, 4 or 5 Federalist Papers? And
yep, that sounds right.
Quit. Sorry, I poured you a lot.
That's fine. Be okay. Cheers.
Cheers, sir. I'm a bourbon guy.
That's tasty.
Over scotch, but I like scotch.
Yeah, I like them both. I have to be in the mood for scotch, but I can drink bourbon pretty much any time. Yeah, that's tasty. It's very woody. You can taste the barrels.
Yeah, it doesn't have too much of a kick either from other that I've had. So it's delicious. I could drink a lot of it, actually.
Well, I wanted to talk to you today about what's happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin, because it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so I've been trying to stay off social media and the news, but someone did text me about it, so I went on and did all watching. The video is shocking, repulsive. I don't fully understand why you need to shoot someone in the back 7 to 9 times, especially if they do. The claims are he has kids in the car.
Right.
And I just thought of my own 3, 2, and newborn child witnessing that, and that's extremely horrifying. So just that alone, I understand a lot of the outrage.
Yeah, I do too. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is I'm seeing a lot of bad takes from both my friends on the left and on the right. And I want to kind of give my perspective on it and hear your perspective on it, because I think like there's a reason why I don't really consider myself on the left or on the right, because both sides, when these kind of things happen, I think have really bad responses to these. And I want to start by saying that I don't know exactly what happened, because I watched the video. You can't really tell what's going on in the video. The guy's running from the cops. He's trying to get into his car, and there's a bunch of cops behind him, and they shoot him in the back. Now, some people are saying he had a weapon or a knife in the car. Some people are saying a lot of different things. We just don't really know. I don't think we should try to litigate this from a weird angle of a video. I think the video looks bad from my perspective, but I wouldn't want to just conclusively say the cop was wrong or the guy was wrong or whatever, because I just don't know all the facts of the situation. But when this came out, my friends on the right, I'll start with my friends on the right and I'll move over to my friends on the left, had a really bad take, which is if you run from the cops, well, you deserve to be shot in the back, basically. You should do what you're told, obey authority, and if you don't, you get what you deserve, which I think is just horrifying. I can't believe that anybody thinks that, and it makes me angry because I feel like that's the caricature of the right that the left always uses to make people look bad. They're like, oh, they're heartless, they're unfeeling, they don't care about poor people, they're violent, they're racist, and I'm like, when you guys go around saying stuff like that, it makes you sound like all those things that the left accuses you of. I find it really upsetting. And then the other thing that the right does, which I disagree with, is they dig into the past of the person. And they're like, well, he had some arrest warrants in 2015. He did this, he did that. He was a bad guy. So what if he got killed? That's irrelevant. The past of the person doesn't matter at all in the situation. What matters is, did you act right or wrong in the situation? And I think, it's the street is not a court of law. You're innocent until proven guilty. You don't get to just shoot people because they did something bad in the past, or think maybe they're a bad guy. So that's kind of my take on my friends on the right and what they've been saying. Some of them, not all of them, it would be unfair to say that, but a few people I've seen have said stuff like that. And I think it's really shocking and upsetting. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, both of those takes make me really uncomfortable. The idea, like, one, yeah, you shouldn't have run from the cops, but I don't know what happened beforehand either. So it's hard to make. But so I agree, maybe not smart, but I don't know how that justifies shooting someone in the back.
Not smart, but not a capital offense.
Yeah, it's not deserving of 7 shots to the back, or even 1. And then the whole idea, they always drum up, oh, he did all these bad things in the past, and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, it makes me really uncomfortable. Like, oh, now we can justify shooting someone, and it creates like a sense inside me, like I'm just not comfortable with either of those two takes.
It's weird because it's got a weird kind of parallel between the mob mentality on the left and right. Like the left is okay with the mob doling out justice and saying, oh, we have to do what the mob says, and the right is okay with the mob as long as the mob is policemen.
Yeah, as long as you have a uniform.
Yeah, and like I reject this idea that we should have this stratified society where there's people with a uniform and they have special power over us, and we have to do whatever they say without question, and if we don't do what they say, they're allowed to kill us. I think that's a terrible way to run society. I think it'd be much better if we had a more egalitarian system where you didn't have this special class of people elevated above everybody else because of the job they have.
Yeah, and then I agree with that, and it's the right's more guilty of that. I guess the left with the mob, they identify if you hold up your silence is violence. So if you got your BLM sign and your black mask, that's your quote unquote uniform. The right, we have the hero mentality of the police, which is more of a reaction to, I think, the left's complete collective demonization of anyone who wears the badge.
Yeah, so I have a lot of sympathy for people who are upset about this kind of thing, and I have a real distrust of authority. I have a real dislike for abuse of power. And so I understand why people are upset about the police abusing their power. And, it baffles me that we keep seeing this stuff. You would think, given all that's happened in the last 6 months or however long it's been, police departments would be on super high alert and would be like, okay, guys, no matter what happens, let's not shoot any black people today. But they seem to do it every week. It's just nuts.
Yeah, and that leads at least my curiosity, like, why did they have their guns drawn? Was it improper? Very well could have. Like, they could have just, I don't know, pulled their guns. I don't understand what the escalation points are, what their training is. Was it a proper? Did something happen beforehand where they should have had their guns out for that reason? I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm not willing or ready to condemn the officer in this particular case because I don't know what happened, and I think that's a big problem we have, is people rushing to judgment on this kind of thing and condemning people in the court of public opinion and saying, oh, he was bad because of the video we saw. Well, the video is a tiny snapshot of what actually happened. So I'm not saying he was right. I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm saying we just don't know, and these questions are better sorted out in a court of law.
Yeah, I agree with that. But as a culture, like you said, we see the snippet and we fill in all the gaps quickly, make a lot of assumptions, and we run with that assumption, whatever fits our narrative. And usually it's guided by whether we're on the right or on the left, how we fill the unknowns.
So yeah, my sympathies are, initially with the people who are critical of the police and who are saying that we need to be careful about how we abuse power. But then the left blows it for me. All my friends on the left immediately come out and rush to judgment and say, oh, well, all the cops are evil, they're all pigs, and all the rioting is going on is justified because in Kenosha they're burning down businesses, they're setting car dealerships on fire, they're hurting innocent people, they're doing all this rioting, and all my friends on the left are like, well, that's fine because the police did something wrong, so the only way we can be heard is to violently protest. We tried peacefully protesting, it doesn't work, we need to violently protest. And I think that's a super bad take as well, and I don't understand how they're even justifying that, where the logic is coming from, but that's what I see everybody saying.
Yeah, and they shoot themselves in the foot. There's a lot of people in America, I think, who are middle of the road, who see this stuff happen, and they're open to change, and they would unite and be like, yep, we got to make some serious changes. But as soon as you start smashing every car and in dealership parking lots, setting things on fire, I know some people have already been killed during the riots and injured, you're going to lose those middle road people because suddenly you're not reasonable, and it kind of just ends any positive progress we actually could make.
Well, that's
off tragedies.
exactly what happened with George Floyd.
Yeah.
You know, for a hot minute, everybody in the country was on the same page. We're like, that's unacceptable. We got to do something to fix that. We got to reform the police. And then the left took it way too far and started hurting innocent people, and they lost the middle. And this is what's happening over and over again, and it's crazy. But I don't understand the logic behind, well, I'm upset about something the police did, so therefore I can go hurt innocent people and burn down their business and hurt, shoot people, threaten people, bully people. Like, I don't see the logical connect there. They have nothing to do with each other. It's like two wrongs don't make a right. The analogy that I like to use is, well, I'm upset about what the police did, so I'm going to drown puppies until they stop. It's like, well, the puppies didn't do anything. How is it their fault? That's a completely unrelated response. And it baffles me how many people I see who I know and am friendly with think this is okay. When I'm like, don't you care about the person who owned that business? They didn't do anything. They're not on the police force. If you were targeting your anger at the actual government buildings or something, that would be one thing. But like targeting it at just random people, I just don't see how that's helping, and I don't see how that's not a compound injustice, a second injustice on top of the first one.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you allege you want to make your communities better and stronger and safer, and then you're destroying your community. When you wreck a business, like that business owner, probably has insurance, but he's probably going to move on. You're going to lose jobs. People are going to be unemployed. Like, it's completely counterproductive, and there is, I think, a great opportunity where we're going to miss, and through all this absolute chaos.
Absolutely, and it makes me question the sincerity of the movement, because if you really cared about police reform, like nothing is happening with the police reform bills in Congress. Nothing is happening with actual efforts. The people are just rioting and looting, and it makes me think that it's much more of an anti-capitalist philosophy than an anti-police philosophy or anti-government philosophy. And the reason they don't care about burning down businesses is they don't like businesses. They think businesses shouldn't exist. They hate insurance companies. They hate people who own things. They hate employers because they're like oppressors by employing people. And that they're taking all their rage on those people. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's just kind of blind anger that's not directed. But it seems to me, based on the conversations I have, that this is much more of an anti-capitalist movement than it is an anti-police movement. I
certainly don't think. I was just listening to the Ron Paul interview on my way over here, and he said on there, not everyone out on the streets is a Marxist, but certainly the leaders are in a lot of these movements. So I think a lot of the majority is just blind anger and kind of following the mob mentality. But I think the heads at the top of these movements absolutely are ideologues, and they're just directing this energy they've captured at their targets, and people are doing it because they're angry about something else.
Yeah, it's really upsetting, and it's been going on for so long. I don't know when it's going to end or how it's going to end. I have a hope that it'll sort of die down after the election, but I don't know if it will or not. And then I have this sort of irrational hope that it's just something about 2020 is cursed, and that as soon as the clock strikes midnight on January 1st, that everyone's going to be like, what
that arbitrary line?
Yeah, what have we been doing? Let's just not do this anymore. Yeah. It'll be fine. I don't have any reason to believe that, but there's a part of me that thinks that maybe that'll happen, but I don't know. I don't know how it ends. I'm worried about it.
It'll be, I've contemplated too that if Donald Trump wins the election, just what are those riots going to look like? There'll absolutely be riots.
Well, the problem,
maybe either way there'll be riots. I
talked about this last week, is I think that whoever wins the election, it's not going to be regarded as legitimate by the other side, because if it's mail-in ballots, the right's going to say the left stole the election. If Trump wins, then the left is going to say he stole the election by suppressing the vote. And so there's going to be a large chunk of people, no matter what happens, who says that the election was stolen and it's not legitimate and we don't accept the president, and I don't know what happens then.
Well, in the three branches of government, the executive branch is my least favorite. So is there a silver lining there where we could actually maybe get it back to not as important in a cultural view?
You would hope, and I always hope naively that as soon as you get a president who's hugely abusing his power as president, that people will say, oh, maybe we shouldn't give the president so much power. But they never think that. They always think, let's just elect our guy in, and then he can abuse his power on our behalf, and that will be good.
And the running philosophy is, if we just elect the right guy as president, he'll fix all society's problems for us. And it's like, the left saying, oh, Trump's marketing, this is the left.
Yeah.
So you have to reelect me. And the left's like, oh, that's ridiculous. You're in power. You're responsible for all this. And it's the same premise that wrong guy's in office or the right guy's in office and the wrong guy's running it. So we just have to put the right guy in there.
Yeah, no one seems to get that it's always going to be the wrong guy and that we need to limit the damage that person can do because that's the way it works. So I've been trying to think about how to, maybe mitigate some of this damage and bridge these gaps because the gulf between left and right seems to be growing wider and wider and no one can talk to each other anymore and everyone's fighting and everyone's, if you don't agree with the left, you're a racist, and if you don't agree with the right, you're just a communist or anarchist, which, I don't agree with because I think anarchy is a good thing, but not in the way they mean it. But so anyway, I've been thinking about communication a lot, and I wrote a new piece published on Free the People, which is about how we need to kind of build safe spaces of trust in order to have conversations, because it's gotten to the point where everybody views your opinion as an attack on them. If you give someone their opinion, they think you're going to try to impose that on them. And I think we need to try to, let people know, well, I'm going to talk to you about this, but there's nothing at stake. If I win the argument, or if I convince you of something, or if you admit that I have a point, I'm not going to immediately impose my view on you. It's just we'll have the conversation and then we'll go back to the way we were before, and like nobody wins and nobody loses. There's nothing at stake, and I think that's what we need to start doing with our friends in a small way. But it's really hard to do because everyone's trying to beat each other. And I did this for many years, and I regret it, where I was trying to hone my logical skills and my arguments to try to, I thought if I could come up with the best, most rational, most logical argument in the world, and I can utterly refute my opponent's position, they're going to have to concede and admit that I'm right because they don't have a leg to stand on. And that's kind of how my brain works. That's when I've changed my mind about things and been convinced of things, it's generally because someone has made a really strong logical argument to me that I have to accept. But other people's brains apparently don't work that way. And when you try to out-logic someone, they just feel like you're attacking them, and they just dig in, and they don't accept your arguments. And so instead of doing that all these years, I should have been trying to listen to people more and explain my viewpoint, but not in a confrontational way, not in a way that I'm saying I'm going to tell you you're wrong or you're stupid or threaten you. And so that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I hope that we can sort of, build a better way of communicating with each other on a one-on-one basis.
No, I read your article, and it was really good, and certainly encourage everyone to go check it out. It's the most recent one on Free the People's website. But it's something I've been thinking about as well, how we have such lack of trust through society today. And all the way from between individuals, all the way up to institutions where people don't trust the medical community, the scientific community, the government, whoever's in power. And I've always wondered, what has eroded that trust? And I think to what you highlight in that article, and is kind of the running theme through it, a lot of it's because there's a lot of coercion behind everything today. And when you coerce people, they immediately don't trust you. If you can't voluntarily agree to something or go out and kind of seek understanding yourself first and then make a decision, you don't trust someone who puts a gun to your head. And I think the way society is moving since the turn of the 19th to the 20th, the 19th to the 20th century is kind of where that began. We've continued to move from more of a local society to a centralized leviathan that I think has just caused this continual erosion of trust.
There seems to be this feeling of people that if they concede anything to you, that it's immediately going to landslide into you imposing your will on them. If I admit you have a slight point, I don't agree with you, but you got a little bit of a point, then immediately you're just going to go, aha, and plunge down on me with your laws and your elected officials and your regulations and stuff. And that's not going to happen. I don't know why we think that's going to happen. If we're just two friends talking, there's nothing at stake, But people seem to think that's going to happen.
No, and I get that feeling too. Someone says, this is what society should be. Now what I hear is, there should be a law that forces everyone to do that. And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. Yeah. Instead of hey, let's talk through this issue I've identified, and I think this is a solution. And it's no longer that conversation. I immediately hear, I'm going to go elect my guy by 51 to 49% majority and impose it on the 49%, and we'll fix society. And
I think the only way that real progress happens is when you have different viewpoints coming together and combining with each other to create something new. When you just have people agreeing with each other endlessly, it doesn't go anywhere. It just stays in the same place forever.
Yeah, and you mentioned in your article, you questioned, I guess, how the impact of social media, and everyone bemoans social media, but then we all can't get off of it. So, but the question is, on social media, you can certainly set up an environment. I do it on my own Twitter. My Twitter is very much an echo chamber of people that I want to hear from.
Right.
How much does that encourage this idea that I should only hear the opinions I care about?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit of two minds about it because I'm very pro technology in general. I think a lot of social media, particularly Twitter, is very toxic. I don't use Twitter anymore. But it kind of depends on how you use it. It's one of those things where it's a tool and you can use it for good or you can use it for evil, depending on how you use it. But I think the temptation to use it for evil is very strong because of the anonymity factor of it, because you can say things to people that you would never say to their face. And you can, try to win likes and followers and stuff by owning someone, Oh, I made him look like a fool. Everybody liked my post. And so you get incentivized to do that more and more instead of, well, no one really likes your post when you make a really good, substantive, thoughtful argument. And you all try to, come together to come up with a new solution to something. You don't get as many likes than if you just make a sarcastic quip that knocks someone down.
One of the pillars of truths of economics, incentives matter.
Incentives do matter. And I've been fond of using this phrase lately, which is that you can't change someone's mind, but they can change their own mind if they're receptive and they think about what you say to them. But you got to create that environment where they can be receptive and they're not going to view you as a threat.
Yeah, and we've completely lost that.
Yeah.
I enjoy a good banter with someone who disagrees with me. I mean, we don't agree on everything. When we have our drinking sessions,
I love them too. But they're always, they're like I said, they're safe spaces where I know that if I agree with you or disagree with you on something, we're still going to be friends at the end of it. You're not going to unfriend me on Facebook and never speak to me again. You're not going to throw a brick through my window. You're not going to dox me. We're just going to talk about it. And at the end of the night, we can say, oh, we didn't come to an agreement on that, but that's okay.
Yeah, I love a good passionate dialogue. I don't think I have plenty of friends on the left, but I don't have any that enjoy in a dialogue where it's almost a debate that we can just kind of push our differences aside at the end. I really want that so someone can challenge me all the time and I can, of course, well, I like arguing my points the most. I like hearing myself talk.
Yeah, I know. I know you do. I do have a lot of friends on the left, and I wish some of them I feel in certain situations I can talk to, but most of the time I'm kind of afraid to give my real opinion to them because I'm afraid they're going to react so violently to it and I think I'm a bad person or something. There's this idea that libertarians are bad people and they're selfish and they only care about getting their taxes cut and stuff, and I don't want them to think that. So it's hard to find that. But if I'm in the right place, the right frame of mind, and we're both in a place where we can talk to each other, occasionally it happens, but it's rare. And I think part of the problem is that people like silver bullets. They like big, large-scale solutions. Like, if we just do this, if the president just does this, it'll solve the problem. And the solution I'm proposing is so micro. It's like one person at a time. You got to make a really good friend who trusts you and then have a conversation with them where you both trust each other. That's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of people. You can't just impose it from above. And people hate that kind of thing. They want to hear that it can just be solved. But I don't think it can. I think it has to happen at that micro level.
Probably starts with just inviting people over for dinner.
Yeah, if you can get them to come over. It's getting increasingly hard to get people to come over because they're afraid of catching a virus from you. But
do you have a favorite, whether I guess left or right? I was going to ask left-leaning intellectual that maybe you disagree with on 75% of the things, but you enjoy listening to? Or?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of classical leftists who are still pro free speech and pro, individual rights to a certain extent that I agree with and that I like. People like Christopher Hitchens or Stephen Fry, like those kind of guys. Stephen Pinker is one I would say. He's broadly on the left. I don't
consider him, I guess he's on the left. I consider him pretty.
Left, but he's not very far on the left.
I like Pinker a lot too.
Yeah, guys like that who still care about freedom of speech and open dialogue and open inquiry and science and stuff. I really like those guys. I think they're wrong on a lot of economic issues, but everybody's wrong on a lot of economic issues.
My favorite to listen to is Eric Weinstein.
Yeah, he's good. I like him too.
I think he's just,
better than Harvey, his brother.
Yeah, he's very interesting, and he's definitely on the left, but he's someone I would enjoy hanging out with regularly.
Yeah.
So, outside of that, do you have anything else that you're working on right now? Your next article, or?
I don't know what my next article is going to be yet. I don't write as much as I used to in terms of articles because I wrote 1,000 articles in my first 2 years in DC, and I kind of said everything I had to say. So now I wait until I'm inspired by something that I see in the news, and I'm trying not to watch too much news like you are because it's depressing. But we'll see what else comes up. Lately, I've been working. We're doing a series with Sam Martin, our creative director at Free the People, on critical theory and kind of the whole ideology that's leading to a lot of the race stuff that's being talked about. And so I think he just finished the second video in that series. We're going to work on a third. I've written a script for it. So that's been really successful on YouTube. It's been pretty popular.
Yeah, the first video was awesome. It's an area I don't know too much about either. So
I'm having to learn it as I go. Yeah. I'm doing the research, but and he is as well. But I think those are really successful. People seem to really like them, so I want to keep doing those. So that's kind of next up on the calendar for me.
Awesome. I saw Yeah, I'm excited about the second video, and for those who haven't seen it, I'd recommend it. Yeah, I have a couple things I've been working to and writing. You have been a prolific writer. I'm trying to get more on your level, I guess, or write more often or more frequently. But I still send you articles that you've written in the past that you forgot about that I'm.
Yeah, there's so many of them. Somewhere I have a document of like every article I've ever written archived, but a lot of them are not online anymore. But yeah, I really churned them out the first few years I was in DC. I was writing like one a day. So
maybe we should compile a book and make it a Logan essay book.
We could, but I hate books that are written that way. Like whenever I buy a book from someone I admire and I find out it's just a random collection of essays that they've written, I'm always disappointed. I'm like, that's not how you write a book. That's lazy. Like anyone can do that. Like write an actual book with a real thesis instead of just collecting essays.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about it.
Well, I think you should still do it.
Maybe I will someday.
You're a pretty solid writer.
Thank you. And with that, I think we'll leave this episode. But it was great talking to you, Mike.
Awesome to be
Let's
here.
do it again soon.
Number 3 in the books.
Yep.
To many more.
Cheers.